Hi, friends. Thank you for taking time out of your week to spend a little with me. I appreciate you. This week, we're taking a look at the Brown family who disappeared without a trace. So, I ask you all to join me as we remember the Brown family. The patriarch, James Michael Brown, was born in 1950. He grew up in Havana, Florida. After James graduated from high school, he stayed in his hometown working various jobs to make ends meet. When James was 22, he met his first wife, Gloria, at church when she was 16. After a short courtship, James and Gloria married in 1974. Following their nuptials, the couple welcomed their first daughter, Chiquita, on December 20th, 1974. With the birth of his first child, James became serious about his future and that of his family, so he enlisted with the Army. James and his family moved to Texas, where he was stationed. James's term of duty ended 10 months after he enlisted because he didn't like being in the military. He was given an honorable discharge. The couple moved back to Florida to be closer to their family. Shortly after returning, Gloria became pregnant with the couple's second child, Jeanette. The couple fought often but tried to make it work. It seemed to be going well until the birth of Jeanette. During delivery, doctors informed Gloria she had contracted syphilis. When James was tested, he was also positive. Despite both Gloria and James receiving treatment, James couldn't overlook the issue at hand. Gloria insisted she wasn't responsible, but James called her a cheater. James ended his marriage to Gloria. After his divorce was finalized, James pursued a teaching degree at Florida A&M University in Tallahassee. It was here he met wife number 2, Carolyn Walker. Carolyn, born on September 6, 1957, quickly became infatuated with James. Carolyn was also pursuing a career in teaching. The couple tied the knot on December 17, 1977. The following year, on December 29, 1978, they welcomed their first son, Barry Michael Brown. Their second son, Brandon Mitchell, was born on December 18, 1983. That same year, James also gained custody of his daughter Chiquita from his previous marriage. Carolyn and James both found work teaching and settled down in Port St. Lucie, Florida. James became a social studies teacher at Lincoln Park Middle School, while Carolyn taught 3rd grade at Chester A. Moore Elementary School. The Brown family moved into a single-family home located at 1955 Southeast Millbrook Terrace. James was described as a family man and hardworking. He had aspirations of becoming a principal and rising the ranks to higher administration. The Brown family also attended Goodwill Presbyterian Church, where James sang in the choir. In 1984, James was suspended from teaching for 3 years due to charges filed against him. School officials called police when they noticed bruising on Chiquita's arms. During a further evaluation, it was discovered she also had welts on her back. When questioned about the injuries, Chiquita explained her father punished her with leather straps after she spent 10 cents of her school lunch money on a pencil. Chiquita was placed in temporary custody of the State Division of Youth Services after telling authorities what happened. James pleaded no contest to the charge and was sentenced to 3 years probation and 250 hours of counseling at Parents Anonymous. Once James lost his teaching position, he found work as an interim 4-H counselor at the St. Lucie County Agriculture Extension Office. But after a year, the grant program supporting his employment ended, and James once again was unemployed. James asked his previous employer for any job they had. He said he'd do anything to make a living for his family. With just one income, James felt the pressure. Rosa Walker, who was Carolyn's mother, started to grow concerned in early August of 1985. Carolyn and Rosa, despite the 5-hour distance between them, were very close. They spoke to each other weekly, but the calls abruptly stopped. Rosa called Carolyn on August 1st and continued to do so for days with no answer. What caused her to really take notice to her daughter's absence was when she started to receive their mail. The mailbox at the Browns' home in Port St. Lucie was at capacity, so the mail was being forwarded to her mother's address. Among the letters received was a notice that James's 1981 Buick Skylark was found abandoned on July 18th in a mall parking lot in Savannah, Georgia. The car's serial number was used to identify the owner. The car was initially treated as an abandoned auto. The contents inside of the car included $40, a t-shirt, and a wallet with no identification. The license plate was also removed. The last time Rosa spoke to her daughter or son-in-law was earlier in July of 1985. The couple had planned to visit again in August before Carolyn was due to return to work on the 19th. Rosa proceeded to call Carolyn's house over and over again, and when she received no answer, she decided it was time to phone the police. On August 10th, police arrived to the Browns' home where they noticed signs of life. The windows were open and they could hear the TV playing, but when they called out for Carolyn or James, no one responded back. The front door was unlocked, so they decided to enter the residence. In the kitchen, police discovered old soup on the stove and food on the table, as if they'd just left. Clothes were found in drawers and in closets, so it didn't seem they'd gone on a trip or anything. The family's beloved hamster, Harry, was found deceased due to starvation. It was like the whole family dropped in a void, remarked one of the officers on the scene. A review of the home's phone records from Southern Bell Phone Company revealed no one had used the phone in almost a month. Neighbors were interviewed where police learned that no one had seen or spoken to the Browns since July 8th. A further search of the home revealed some other strange things. In the corner of the garage, Carolyn's glasses and clutch bag were found. Her credit cards and license were neatly cut up and left in a pile next to the bag. A room was freshly painted, and a receipt for a newly purchased .22 caliber weapon for James. There was no sign of a struggle having taken place. Initially, police didn't treat this as a missing persons case, since they didn't think foul play was involved. But Rosa and James's family felt differently. They were insistent that they wouldn't just disappear, especially without taking Harry, whom they took anytime they traveled. They had no reason to leave, and according to Rosa, they were not having financial issues, since her daughter had a good job. She confirmed during her last visit with the couple that everything seemed fine. The investigation shifted, however, when Carolyn Brown, who was described as a conscientious teacher, did not return to work on August 19th. The family had missing persons reports filed for each member of the Brown family. Shortly after the reports were filed, the investigation received an unexpected development. Carolyn's sister received a call from James. James told her she could have everything inside of his home. Rightfully, her sister was concerned about their whereabouts and well-being, so she pressured him for answers. James only replied that his wife and children were out there before ending the call. Shortly after this news broke, another individual came forward, admitting James reached out to them as well. A friend close to James stated that during his conversation with James, he admitted to him that he was en route to a job site overseas, and that his sons Barry and Brandon were with him. He wouldn't give an answer about Carolyn or Shakita. He explained, "I've got the boys, and I had to leave in a hurry." The friend said he was frenzied and wouldn't give him his location before hanging up the phone. No one else received calls from James, and the leads on the Brown case quickly dried up. They wouldn't get answers until September of 1985. A man under the name Demetrius Jones was identified by a worker at a boarding house in Savannah, Georgia, as James Brown from his photograph in the newspaper. Police weren't sure how sure the lead was, but decided to take a look into it. On September 11, 1985, police met up with Demetrius Jones, and to their surprise, they were met with the missing James Brown. When asked how he ended up in Savannah, James told quite the tale. On July 18th, James arrived in Savannah where he was robbed at gunpoint. When James refused to give up, he was shot in the head. James was transported to the hospital where he spent 2 days. He was then moved to a nursing home for 5 weeks for continued rehabilitation. James was released from care just 2 weeks prior. He moved into the boarding house until police caught up with him on September 11, 1985. Investigators were not convinced by Brown's story, though, especially since he had not once mentioned his family. After 2 days of questioning, James finally cracked. He admitted he fabricated the robbery story and the gunshot was self-inflicted. When asked why he would do such a thing, James admitted it was part of a pact he had with his wife. If she died, he died. On July 14, 1985, James woke up around 7 a.m. He locked the master bedroom door where Carolyn and their youngest son Brandon slept. James admitted he took his gun and shot Carolyn once behind her ear. Then he took a pillow and smothered his son, who was asleep next to Carolyn. James then claimed he took their bodies from the home and dumped them in Belle Glade, close to Lake Okeechobee. Then he returned home and stayed with Chiquita and Barry before putting them in the car and driving over 300 miles to Georgia. He stopped near Brunswick, Georgia, on the side of I-95. He carried Barry and Chiquita to a wooded area near the edge of the road where he claimed he first shot Barry in the head, then shot Chiquita in the face. He left their bodies in the woods. James then stated he drove to Savannah, where he spent the day riding around, trying to find a place where he could shoot himself. Early the next morning, on July 18th, he went to the undisclosed location in Savannah and shot himself twice in the head. When he realized he failed to carry out the act, he concocted the robbery story to give the hospital staff. When asked why he would do such a thing, James stated for as long as he could remember, he heard voices in his head, and the voices pushed for him to rid his family of the disease. He was asked about this disease, and James explained he contracted a venereal disease many years ago. Although he was cured, he remained convinced that the disease remained within. James described it as an odor that emanated from his body that soon spread to not only his wife, but his children as well. Because of this, he needed to put a stop to it all. James was arrested on September 13, 1985, and charged with making a false report and obstruction of justice because of his fake robbery story. He was held on a $20,000 bond in Chatham County. Upon his arrest, another search was conducted on the Brown home. This time, police noticed the fresh paint from before was used to cover up bloodstains. More than 50 items were removed as evidence in the case and sent to the FBI lab in D.C. for testing. Police officially charged James with the murder of Carolyn and Brandon after they found enough evidence in the home to substantiate his story. A search for the remains was carried out with James leading the way. Police in both Florida and Georgia searched the areas thoroughly for 3 days, but found no evidence of Carolyn or her children. Without Chiquita or Barry's bodies, police could not charge James with their murders due to jurisdiction issues. Police in both states believed they might never find the bodies. James was extradited to Florida to face his day in court. Although prosecution felt they had enough evidence against James to seal his fate, the defense came armed with James's lengthy mental health issues. Since the mid-1970s, James reportedly suffered from schizophrenic episodes. He spoke of voices and delusions that he couldn't control. A court-appointed psychologist diagnosed James as a paranoid schizophrenic. Because of this and the lack of evidence, James was acquitted of the charges due to insanity. Although he was acquitted, the judge ordered treatment at the Florida State Hospital in Chattahoochee. James stayed in the mental hospital for 10 years until 1996, where he was moved to a halfway house. James was released from custody the following year after being deemed not a threat. The conditions of his release included James attending meetings with his social worker, therapy sessions, and monthly injections of Haldol, a psychotropic medication. James was released to live with his relatives in Tallahassee. 7 years after his release, James was arrested and charged again after he threatened a bank clerk during a robbery. He served his sentence and was released once again. James was last said to be living in a small town in Florida working for his brother's funeral home. He continues his therapy and monthly injections. He spoke to reporters in the early 2000s where he admitted some things in his original confession were fabricated. He explained after he murdered his wife, he went to a department store to buy a hacksaw. He claimed to have cut Carolyn into pieces and placed in garbage bags alongside his son. He then took those bags to another part of town and placed them in a dumpster behind a grocery store. The eldest children were shot in the head in his car and disposed of in a dumpster behind an office building. This meant police had no chance of finding the Brown family because James led them astray. James has shown remorse for his actions, claiming he got sick in 1985 and that he is no longer that person. James's family prefers to think James never killed his family. Even at the time of the trial, they didn't believe he was guilty. His brother told reporters he believed Carolyn ran off with a man or was kidnapped, and felt the officers took advantage of his brother's mental state and pushed him to confess, because James was always a family man. No one believed he was capable of such heinous crimes. James has since confirmed mental illness runs in his family. His father tried to kill his wife, and another brother did kill his wife. According to James, he was unaware of the familial disease until he was convicted. As previously stated, James continues to live his life as a free man. According to Gloria, James's ex-wife, James has had no contact with his daughter Jeanette for some years. If the bodies of Chiquita and Barry are ever recovered, James could face additional murder charges in Georgia. The cases of Carolyn, Chiquita, Barry, and Brandon Brown are still open and considered missing. If you or anyone you know has information, you are urged to contact the Florida Department of Law Enforcement or Port St. Lucie Police Department. These numbers will be in the description of this video. Hi friends, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts, so leave them below and we can chat about this case. If you found this to be informative, please consider giving the video a thumbs up to let YouTube know you want more from me. And lastly, if you're not subscribed yet, you should, because we would love to have you under the ash tree. Thank you so much, my friends, for checking this video out and supporting the channel. You don't have to, and you do, and that means the most to me. I hope you all have a great week ahead of you, because you deserve it. But for now, we must part ways. So stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends.